Yeah, hello everyone, it's the Eminent Trader, and in this video I'll be showing you a top-down analysis of some of the pairs I'm looking at and my outlook for the new week. And let's get into it. So this is Audjpy on the weekly time frame, and if you look at the weekly time frame, you can clearly see that the market is on an uptrend, a very valid one at that. It has broken a weekly resistance, closed with a full body, and even closed with a full body again, which shows that the market is completely bullish. And what that means is that I should be looking out for possible buys, and this is the weekly time frame. So after marking out that, I go to my daily. I go to my daily time frame and I mark it out again. Okay, I can see this. This was the break now. Now it is clearer. It is clearer. You can clearly see it. Then you go to on the daily now, you can see an FVG here, and you go to your 4 hours. On the 4 hours now, this is clearly the only recent unmitigated order block. Very clear. And having an FVG directly above it with this candle, which serves as an inducement, makes it a very, very valid point of interest to enter the market from. So I marked the order block and the FVG together directly below this inducement, which gave me this entry, and my target is the recent high, which is a 5 hour trade, which is what I'm looking at. And that is basically how I got the entry for this one. So it's very, very straightforward. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's see what the market decides to do during the week. And it had already filled this FVGA, so I expect it to sell downwards towards this level, then buy back and clear this high. Simple and what? Simple and short. So that is that for Audjpy. Then the next pair is AUD same style. Go back to the weekly. And the difference between the other pair and this is that on the weekly, this market is reacting from a weekly order block that had already swept FVG and swept the weekly order block to and rejected. And it also closed below the candle. So there was no close above initially, then it later closed above this candle that it created before it. And if you zoom in now, you can clearly see it that normally you should what? You should be looking for what? For buys. Then going into, so you should be looking for sales rather to continue downwards. But going into the daily, you can clearly see something here, a failed swing that's failed to create another high, which means it's expected to at least sell downwards to a significant extent within this level. And this is on the what? On the daily. Then you go to your 4 hours. On the 4 hours now, it becomes more clearer. It becomes more clear. I can clearly see this CISD here also. Closed with a full body, came back and rejected inside. Rejected again here. Came back inside, rejected. And now we have this rejection. Then you go to your 15 minutes. Or was it 1 hour I used? I think it was 15 minutes. Let me be sure. Yes, it was only 15 minutes. Because I know I'm supposed to be looking for sell after all those rejection. And I have this now. Can clearly see the rejections mitigated. This has already mitigated this, so I don't expect any sell from here anymore. And this leaves us with the only unmitigated order block, which also has an FVG directly above it. So I expect price to just come inside and sell back towards this external range liquidity here. At least worst case scenario, it should sweep this before any other thing is going to happen in the market. So I expect it to enter into this order block, fill this FVG and enter into it and sell downwards. So that is my expectation based on the current market structure. You can clearly see it is very, very visible. It has failed to break this level, and this has already mitigated this. Do you understand? So this is the most valid point of entry for this pair, which takes us to the next one, which is called Gbpy. Sorry about that. Needed to drink water. So same thing, start from the weekly again. Same thing, it is the weekly reacted from an FVG. It reacted from a FVG. It has solely ignored this one. But anytime price comes here, I'll wait for the reaction before going into the daily or 4 hours to look for entry. But this is also still valid. But we are dealing with the current market. It clearly reacted from the FVG. The weekly FVG, you can see that FVGs are powerful, very powerful. When you see them on the higher time frame, they are very, very powerful. I expect price to still come back here much later on. It might not be now, but I expect price to still come back there to fill or at least mitigate that FVG. So looking at this level now, you can clearly see a CISD in this level. We broke out, came back inside to fill it. And now, knowing that I'm looking for sales, I can now go to my daily and see what is happening there. So looking at this now, you can clearly see that the market is headed for somewhere that it wants to reject from. So I can see this area here. Then look at the 4 hours and see what is attracting price to that level. Now I can clearly see another unmitigated order block, which also has an FVG. Hope you are seeing all these things. This one also has an order block and an FVG directly below it, hence the entry and the target. It is very, very what? Very, very straightforward. It has failed to break this twice rather. First time it failed to break. This also failed to break. This also failed to break. So I expect it to tap into that level, this unmitigated order block, and mitigate this FVG along with it and drop down to this final target here, which is also a what? A 5-hour trade. Simple and short. And that is that for Gbpy, which takes us to the next pair, which is Euro USD. Now, this pair is one very, very complicated pair. Very, very complicated. But then we are starting from the weekly again. As you can see, it's clearly mitigated from a weekly FVG also. You can clearly see mitigated the weekly FVG. It ignored the other block there. I think it was already mitigated self. Okay. Yeah, it was mitigated. It was already mitigated. That's why I came for that's why I made use of the FVG. It was already mitigated. So it came for the FVG and mitigated the FVG and closed below, which means that what you should be looking for, sales, and price came back inside. So you already noted that down. You go to your daily and look for like proper order blocks. And you can clearly see the CISD also. This was the other block. And price came back to mitigate it here. even though it didn't mitigate the full body, but it was already mitigated, very clear. And after the mitigation, it closed below here. And what you are seeing here, there's a full body on the 4 hours. So you now go to the 4 hours and see, and all these signs are bearish movement. You can clearly see bearish movement, market closing below. Then you now go to your 4 hours. You've already marked this level down. You go to your 4 hours and you start looking at where are my possible entries. Now, this is one. I already marked this down. Anytime price comes, I expect to see what? I expect to see a reaction within this area. I expect to see a reaction inside this FVG. I expect to see a reaction there because all of this has already been mitigated. There's literally nothing here for the market to come for except it's clearing and sweeping everything towards that order block, that higher order block, which I said it was already mitigated, but not the full body. So I expect price to still come back to fill this FVG much later on. And looking at this now, you can clearly see the levels that have been mitigated. This has already been mitigated. There's nothing there. All of this already mitigated. This already mitigated. That's already mitigated by this. FVG field. Order block mitigated. Order block mitigated. So you can clearly see that you are not expecting price inside most of this level anymore. Then which takes us to the lower time frame. So on the 1 hour now, I can also see mitigated. It has been mitigated. See it for confirmation. You can see it has been what? It has been mitigated. And these are bearish signals that has failed to break, mitigated. So you can clearly see mitigated. Then you go to your 15 minutes. On the 15 minutes now, I now have an unmitigated order block here. This is the only unmitigated order block, and the market hasn't mitigated 50% of the order block yet. So I expect price to either drop down or go straight to the order block and sell downwards. So this is the only major valid entry based on my own strategy. This is the only place where I expect price to get to and reject. And this is the nearest target for me, especially because I'm using 5RR. So this is where I'll be targeting for this trade. It's as simple as that, and it has mitigated the FVG. So it's going back will most likely sweep all of this and enter into the order block. And I made sure to cover this eye. Very, very important. Make sure to cover that eye. Very, very important. So that is that for Euro USD. The next one is GJ. Same thing, you go back, you start from the weekly. You start from the weekly. All right, so start from the weekly. So looking at the weekly now, you can clearly see that the market was on an uptrend, just cleared this, but then that's created a CISD, closed below it on the weekly. And it has mitigated that order block and also rejected. You can see it has been mitigated. So the order block here has already been mitigated. So going downwards now, I know that I'm looking for what? I'm looking for sales. And you can see a full body candle close. Then you go to your daily to look at it clearly. Okay, this is it. You can clearly see mitigated properly mitigated. So I know that that one is out of it. Then I can also see that there's a failed swing that I failed to break that I also failure swing rather. And I know that I can also see this even though it did not close with a full body, but it means that there's a full body close on the 4 hours and the FVG has already been filled completely and rejected, which means I should also still be looking for sell. Those are conferences for me. Then going to the 4 hours, now I can clearly see that this has also been mitigated, and this is the only unmitigated order block here. This is the only unmitigated order block, and it also has an FVG above it, which has already been mitigated. And what that means is that when price is coming back there, it is not using this FVG again to most likely make use of this, considering the fact that this has also been mitigated, and you also have this. So in this instance now, there's two possible entries, but looking at the nearest one, this looks more valid than this because this has also mitigated this. So normally one is supposed to mark everything together like this if you wanted to be safe, but you'll be carrying too much risk. So you can have two entries. Let this cover this. And you would have another entry for this. But then this is what I'm looking at, current market structure first. Then you see what happens there. Or you wait and see the reaction and enter on the lower time frame. And this gives you a 6-hour trade. If you extend it, it won't be up to. You'll be having like 3 hour. If you want that, you can work with that. But this is what I'm working with, a 6-hour trade. And you can clearly see that it has closed with a full body on the 4 hours and also filled, mitigated this FVG, closed with a full body. So I expect price to come here and sweep everything here till this level, or at least this level. So let's see what the market decides to do. So that is that. So FVGs are very powerful on the higher time frame, especially your weekly, daily, and 4 hours. They are very powerful. You can see that the market made use of the FVG. Market rejected from the FVG because all of this had already been mitigated. So it made use of the FVG there. So that is that. This is what I'll be having here. And let's go to the next pair, which is Gbpusd. Also a sell on the 4 hour, but how did we get there? Let's go back to our weekly. So you can clearly see that all of this had already been mitigated. But I still expect price to come for this FVG much later. It might not be now, even though it's slightly. So this might serve as inducement for it much later. It might not be now, but anytime price comes for that area much later, I'll be waiting to see how the price reacts there. I'll be waiting to see how price reacts there. That place is a place to look out for eventually once price comes there. But current market structure is what we have business with. We have a CISD already. And you can clearly see that price has not mitigated it yet. And there's also an FVG there. So on the weekly, this is also a place to look out for on the weekly. That is why I marked it down, both levels. That is why I marked that down. But you can't take trade in this level, it will be too big. Hope that is clear. Then going to the daily now, we are dealing with the current structure. Remember, it has already changed, giving us a change in state of delivery. And this FVG has already been filled. And we can see a failure swing also. You can see that the FVG has been filled on the Sorry, it has been created on the daily also. This is also still waiting. This is another level. So taking this trade looks very, taking this is quite risky though, but then there are too many places to be waiting for. So I'll be expecting price to react here too. Expect price to react there. Expect price to react here or here. And this has already been filled. You can see it has already been filled. More than 50% of, so there's nothing there again. There's nothing there again. So I expect price to come here. And this is also an unmitigated order block on the daily, which also has an FVG beside it. So very valid key level to be on a lookout for a rejection. Then on your lower time frame, you find entry. Well, based on the current price action, we are looking at this area here. Then you go to your 4 hours. On the 4 hours now, we have another CISD. And we have this other block sitting pretty there to unmitigated, even though the FVG had already been filled, which means that when price is coming back there, it will most likely ignore this and go for the other block, which is why I marked this out. And this has already mitigated this. So there's nothing in that area anymore. Then you've covered that. And you target this. This is a clear target. And you have your what? You have your 5 hour sitting pretty simple and short. But if price breaks this, I expect to get a reaction here and see what happens. And see what happens there. I expect to get a reaction there, but that is that. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm more of a swing trader. So you will see most of my entries are either on the 4 hours or on the 15 minutes. If it's not on the 4 hours, then that means I'm going straight to the 15 minutes for my entry. And that's like if I'm seeing a lot of mitigated points of interest, which takes us to the last pair, which is also, this was also, the entry was also on the 4 hours. But how did we get there? Started from the weekly FVG field, weekly order block field. You can see mitigated, swept this, use this as inducement to sweep the FVG, to mitigate the FVG rather, swept the inducement, mitigated the FVG and this other block here, and we have this now. So clearly bearish, and we have a failure swing, we have a CISD, we have another one here, and what that means is that you should be looking for sales. Then you now go to your daily. You go to your daily. So you go to your 4 hours. How did I get straight to daily? So you go to your daily rather, and you look at it again. You can now clearly see the body breaks. Can clearly see the body breaks. And you know that, okay, I'm looking towards for sale. And you have this already mitigated and rejected. There's a full body close already inside, which means that I'm looking for what? I'm looking for sales, temporary sales. And where is the valid order block? This is the only valid order block here. You can clearly see multiple breaks and FVG already filled, which means that if price is coming there, it's clearing everything here. There's nothing to hold price once it comes back down. And looking at this also, there's a clear FVG directly above the order block. So looking at it with your ordinary eye, you would think it has been mitigated, but it has not. It has not been mitigated, and there's a tiny FVG in between. So this is like an inducement for this order block, and which is why that entry was picked. And you have something like this. So I expect price to sweep this inducement, mitigate the FVG and the order block together and drop. This is one very, very good setup that I expect to play out, and it is also a 5 hour setup. But looking at the issue of the war and everything, one has to be extremely careful. because the market will be very volatile once the market opens. So be very, very, very careful. But those are the key levels I'll be looking out for technically. Technically, those are the levels I'll be looking out for price to get to mitigate and everything. So I'll see you guys same time next week. Enjoy the rest of your day, of your evening, whichever. I remain the Eminent Trader. Thank you and God bless.
Follow me for more educative contents like this.